Friends, blessings in the name of the Lord. I pray that you are well. It's Mary here, and I have a word to share with you today. This is going to be a word more for those of you who feel a strong pull or call of God on your life. It may even be a calling into ministry. And it's going to be based off a dream that I had back on August the 10th. And in this dream, there was this man who had wanted me to marry him for a long time. And he had been very steadfast in that and unwavering in that. His opinion on that didn't change. You know, for years he had wanted to get married, and he was just waiting for me to decide and to commit to that and to say that that's what I wanted as well. And in the dream, when I did finally tell him I would marry him, I remember being very happy, and I was like trying to contain my smile. And then after I told him that I would marry him, once I did, he showed me this big pile of money. And I realized that he has lots of money for us, but he wasn't going to tell me until we decided to marry, or until I finally decided to marry him. So he had waited until I made that commitment to marrying him before he showed me this pile of money that he had. And when he showed it to me, I was like, oh, this is a lot of money, and we are pretty much set. Like we have everything that we need right here, that we could ever need right here. So, but saying that, this was the interpretation that the Lord gave me of that, because it wasn't so much related to marriage. I guess for some of you it could be. But what I heard the Lord saying is, once you commit, the provision will come. Once you commit, the provision will come. And I really felt it was more related to purpose, calling. What the Lord was showing me through that is that many of us have a calling and a purpose on our life, and something that God is calling us towards. But it's funny the way that God works, because when it comes to the things of God and living by kingdom principles and living in his kingdom and doing things the kingdom way, the world's way is so different than the kingdom way. You know, the world's way when it comes to commitment or to marriage is, let's try each other out. You know, the world says, let me take this car for a test drive, see how it goes, and then I'll decide whether I want to buy the car, right? The world says, let's live together and see how it goes, and then we'll decide whether we want to get married, right? So the world usually tries things out, sees how it works, and then makes the commitment. But the thing with living for the kingdom is that God's ways are so different. And from my own personal experience, and from many things that we read about in the Bible, Elisha and Elijah, for example, when Elisha was called and Elijah threw his cloak around Elisha went back and slaughtered the oxen, and then just left his whole life behind and followed Elijah. He left everything behind to follow him. In the New Testament, we see it when people follow Jesus, like the rich man who Jesus said, go sell all you have and come follow me. And this man went away sad because he didn't want to leave his old life behind. But oftentimes that's the way it is with the things of God. In that God doesn't want us just to date him or to date our calling. God wants us to marry him. God wants us to give our full commitment to him, to that thing. And sometimes we don't do that because we're thinking like the world. The world says, I need to have all this figured out before I make the commitment. I need to know that it's going to work, right? Let me see if this thing works. And then once I figure that out and I can crunch all the numbers and it all makes sense and I can make it all fit together, then I will give my commitment, full-on commitment to that thing. But with the kingdom, God often asks us to make a full-on 100% commitment. I'm going all in. I'm leaving everything behind, and I'm banking 100% on God and what He's calling me to. I've experienced this in my own life. When I was younger, God had called me into a certain area, a certain career path He had called me into, and I went 100% full in because I knew God was calling me to it. So I did things that to the world probably looked foolish because, I moved to a new city where the school was that I needed to go to, but I didn't necessarily know how much funds I would have and how long I would be able to do this for. And I was just banking on and believing that I would get into the school, which was very difficult to get into. I had no guarantee of that. And I just moved there and, was taking classes, and there are all these pieces that need to come together for this to work out for me. But because I knew that it was God calling me to this thing, I threw myself 100% into it. And I saw God move through that. And just miracle after miracle of things working out and being arranged in such a way that they had to happen for this thing to work and this thing to succeed. And I think oftentimes it's like that for us. If God is calling us into something, and especially if it's a ministry, that instead of having us be in a place where it's like, oh, let me just try this out for a little bit and see if it works out, and then I'll decide whether I want to do this. He often wants us to go into marriage on the thing. He often wants us to make that commitment first. Yes, God, I'm 100% in. Yes, God, I will do this. And then He shows us that pile of money, so to speak, which represents in this dream, me agreeing to marry that person was me giving my full-on commitment. It was me saying, yes, I'm committed to this. And it's for life, and there's no going back. And the money, it represented provision. So what the Lord was showing me through this is that sometimes He doesn't show us the provision until after we've made the commitment. And for some of you, you're waiting because you're trying to figure out, can I make all the numbers work? Can I figure this all out? And then you want to make your commitment to the thing God is calling you to. But God is saying to you that no, He wants your commitment first. And then once He has your commitment, He's going to show you the provision that He has for you to make this possible. And that was the main thing I felt that God wanted me to share with you. And I have so many examples of this in my personal life and so many examples in the Bible where the way God asks us to do things, it does seem radical to the world, and it oftentimes may seem irresponsible or not wise, not the wise thing to do. And I'm careful with this because I don't want to say anything that's going to convince people to do something unwise. So please, of course, always, before you make any major life decisions, pray about it, seek God about it, get His confirmation about it. But I do believe that the way of the kingdom oftentimes is the way of, I'm not going to date this thing and try it out and see how it works and then decide to get married. It's, I'm going to marry myself to this. I'm going to commit myself to this. I'm going to commit myself to the call of God on my life. I'm going to commit myself to ministry. And once we do that, and once we make, because God's mind doesn't change. God's mind doesn't change. He's unwavering. He's just waiting. He's waiting for us. But once we decide to make that commitment, then we will start to see the provision come. That's when he shows us, okay, here's what I have. Here's what I have for you. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, friend. And I pray that this blesses you and it brings clarity to whatever area that you need it in. And as far as the things of God, I pray that you would give your full-on commitment 100% without wavering, and know that you can do that. And in doing that, God is going to open up the way for it to happen and make it possible, friend. So blessings in the name of the Lord, and we'll talk next time. Bye.